Hello and welcome. This is Americans Learn, not Chicago Reacts. I'm still trying to get some audio stuff taken care of with the Learn's settings. I think for people with headphones, it was coming out like the audio was weird for people with headphones. So I'm just trying to think of the people with headphones. We still have our Chicago Reacts background going on. Hopefully this gets fixed pretty soon. But in any case, today I am going to be looking at a channel called Bedtime Stories, and the video I'm going to be looking at is Who is the Grinning Man? We are doing creepy stuff. We want to do some creepy stuff for the spooky month. So if y'all have any ideas for any spooky videos, go ahead and let me know. I want to do spooky videos throughout the entire month across all the channels with both me and Kit. So as many different spooky type videos as you can get me would be greatly appreciated. Do make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. That way you'll know when we post them. And again, leaving those comments helps a lot too, letting us know what we should be watching. We do have a bunch of stuff happening on Patreon. Speaking of this Patreon scene here. So over there, I've got Castlevania is going up. Housing Complex C, Kit is watching. I've got Over the Garden Wall has started going up on the Chicanime channel. I'm watching Helsing Abridged over on Chicago Reacts. We've got some spooky things going on. So join us for spooky season. And now we're gonna watch about a creepy cryptid. Grinning Man. Who's he? He sounds awful.
Alien, humanoid cryptid, man in black, figment of the imagination, or all of the above. This being who terrorizes people in the dead of night is known by many names, but he needs only one. Who is the Grinning Man?
Jared Leto. Solved it.
Cast your mind back to your childhood, a time when life was a curious mix of innocence, hijinks and promise, when each day was a new adventure, when there was no limit to your curiosity, energy or imagination.
I don't remember a time like that.
When weekends brought you pocket money, scraped knees brought you tears, and darkness, all manner of foreboding. Just as surely as most children fear the dark, most also fear some kind of bogeyman.
I was never really afraid of the dark as a kid. Not really of like monsters under the bed or in the closet or anything. And maybe part of that was because like if I had been, like, my parents would have just kind of dismissed those fears as like ridiculous, so it just wasn't. I did have like some like something in the vent, you know, kind of thing, but that's just because I couldn't see very well. Regardless of it being dark, I also was needed glasses, and we didn't know that, so like I would already couldn't see. Now I really couldn't see in the dark, so like I used to play tricks on you. I don't know. I didn't. We played night games and stuff though. Like I lived like near woods, and like we would be kind of in and around them at night, like as kids.
Was there a bogeyman in your town?
No.
Perhaps it was the village recluse, who lived in a decrepit old house at the end of the street.
We didn't have one of
Maybe
those.
it was something unseen, watching from beyond the tree line of the woods behind your home.
No, we knew those were deer. We knew those were the deer. Like we could tell, like, I don't know, like there were woods, but like, and again, we weren't really, we knew they were either deer or teenagers. Like, we knew, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if there was like spookies, you know, when I was a kid. There was one house that my mom said a witch lived in. But that was it.
Or perhaps it was some unsightly creature, dwelling on a lonely windswept moor, only venturing out during the night to feast on the blood of the young. Whatever it was, your fear of it more than likely diminished with age. There are no such things as monsters, your parents probably told you, drummed into you even, and maybe you would believe them.
Kind of, because my parents were like, no such thing as monsters, but demons are real. Demons are gonna come and get you. Which, like, I don't know. I don't believe in demons either. But like there was definitely talk of demons in my house as real things that would affect your day-to-day life. And there have been a few times where like I've gotten some really terrible night terrors. Like where I was like, I felt that there was a presence somewhere, you know, like there were things that I felt that sort of evil energy. But I still don't know exactly what that was. It might have just been, you know, my mind playing tricks on me, probably. Maybe there was some kind of weird presence, but like, I don't know. I was never afraid of that though. Like as a kid, even it's like, there were no such thing as monsters. They didn't want me watching scary movies or anything because they knew that my imagination would in fact take that and run with it. So I didn't watch those kinds of things as a kid. Interesting. I don't know.
Maybe you wouldn't, but in time, as you got older, it became an accepted and imperishable truth.
The only monsters are humans.
And yet even now, how can we be so sure? Every year across the globe, people report seeing what they describe as monsters. Aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, the Wendigo, skinwalkers, black-eyed children, the chupacabra, dogman, mothman, slenderman, lizardman.
So many. Okay, we get so many.
Invisible men.
All these evil
men. In black.
Women in white. Let's get a lady in here. let's get a woman in white on that list. You know, I know people say that, but your mind plays tricks on you. A lot of time, half of those were just mangy dogs, you know?
List goes on and on and on.
Sorry, I'm gonna go into the rest of this with a little bit more of let's get spooked, right? Let's go into this not from a scientific sort of standpoint, not from a there's no proof that any of this kind of thing is real. We're gonna go into this with a little bit more good faith. All right, I'm 3 minutes in. Let's go. Good faith. Let's get spooked. Let's assume everything is real. Let's just go into it assuming it's all true. Just for now. For fun.
And whilst encounters with such beings are said to be horrifying in their own right, by far and away, one of the most frightening entities you could ever bump into on a cold, dark evening is said to be the Grinning Man. Not least because, unlike many of the others, he has been known to enter people's homes in the dead of night.
Great.
And watch them while they sleep.
The only image I'm really thinking of in my head right now is the Smilers from that episode Hush in Buffy. Let's see if I can't pull up a photo of those for those of you who haven't seen them. These guys. These guys, so freaky. So scary, these dudes. Just trying to see if I can get a better picture. Look at this. I don't know what those guys are, ugh. Look, they're going into the house. They're in the dorms. Doug Jones. Hi. Do you have a moment to talk about your Lord and Savior? Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to, if you haven't seen any of that, this is... That's what I was thinking. That's all I could think of. Every time he talks about the grinning man, and now he's like, they're going into my house. That's who I'm thinking.
On the surface, at least, the grinning man's appearance doesn't sound all too frightening. He doesn't have the large, soulless black eyes of an alien grey, the huge, imposing girth of a Sasquatch, or the sharp teeth and claws of the Dogman. But there is something about him that disturbs eyewitnesses to their core. Said to be about 7 foot tall, with broad shoulders and a muscular physique, he is described as having small beady eyes, which are set unnaturally wide apart, nestled either side of a shallow nose. His face and head are utterly devoid of hair, and he is often seen wearing a tight-fitting one-piece suit, which is reflective, like tin foil.
So far it looks like the Buffy guys are actually pretty close to a lot of that. Maybe they were based off of this dude.
It is said that his facial expression would otherwise be docile, but for the fact that he constantly sports a wide, inhuman grin. And it is this grin which eyewitnesses find most disturbing, for it is not a grin of pleasure or even amusement. It is one of sheer menace. It is said that his mouth smiles, but his eyes do not. And aside from this disconcerting facial expression,
Trying to smile like him.
witnesses have also reported a feeling of absolute dread when confronted by this being,
He looks like Voldemort.
almost as if they are staring death in the face. What follows is a select few
Great.
of some of the most terrifying encounters with the grinning man.
Let's go.
The earliest recorded sighting occurred in Elizabeth, New Jersey, on the 11th of October 1966.
Okay. So, I feel like I'm definitely gonna try and post this on the 11th of October then, which is a pity because that's 2 weeks from now. But still, anytime I give a date, October 11th.
It was 9:45 p.m, and 2 boys by the names of Martin Munov and James Yankaitis were walking home from a movie theatre along New Jersey and 4th Street. After a while, they turned onto another road that ran adjacent to NJ and 4th, and found themselves walking beneath the elevated New Jersey Turnpike. After dark, this area of town was certainly no place for 2 young boys, and they must have felt uneasy as they walked through what was essentially a dark tunnel, with traffic pounding 30 feet over their heads, and only a few pools of light emanating from the street lamps on the road above.
Yeah, that would suck. I don't like walking
Lining
under
their
like,
route
passes
was a
like
high
that.
chain link fence, the other side of which was a steep slope, leading back to the underside of the turnpike. Earlier that evening, they had heard that a woman in town had been chased by a huge man wearing a green suit, but they tried to put this out of their minds as they walked through the darkness, chatting as nonchalantly as their nerves would allow. They had almost emerged from the other side of the turnpike when James noticed someone standing in the bushes on the opposite side of the chain link fence. He nudged his friend and said, "Who's that?" Martin turned to look behind him, and that's when both boys noticed how incredibly tall and well built this figure was. He was wearing a green reflective suit, and his attention seemed to be entirely fixed on a house across the street,
Creepy.
situated some 200 metres away from where they were. He didn't even notice the 2 boys looking at him at first, but after a few seconds, he turned to face them. The boys later described him as the weirdest looking guy they had ever seen. His face didn't even look human. Needless to say, they panicked and ran, leaving the figure behind, grinning at their backs. As fate would have it, famous author and ufologist John Keel was in the area shortly after the encounter,
Okay,
investigating a
of course he was.
UFO
Okay.
which had been witnessed 40 miles north of Elizabeth.
Sorry, I said I
He
was
got-
gonna go into this good faith, and I'm like, but as soon as they bring in aliens like that, I'm like, but okay, anyway. I mean, yeah, I believe they absolutely saw someone. I believe that the person was being a creep. But, like, It's late at night, dark shadows everywhere. Have you ever tried to look at your face in a mirror at night? It does not look human. Like, there are, a few, it might have, and like, he's in the bushes on the home, it's like, might have been a homeless man, who knows? And like, they'd already heard a scary story. There are options here. The story itself, quite creepy, because yes, that's absolutely terrifying. Like, you're walking home late at night, you see a guy just standing there grinning. Awful. No thank you.
Wind of the boys' story and set about interviewing them separately. They both gave the same description and both indicated exactly the same spot where they had seen the strange entity.
Okay,
And because the
so,
aforementioned
makes sense.
UFO sighting had occurred on the very same evening, it wouldn't be long before conclusions were drawn pertaining to the Grinning Man's otherworldly origins. The second eyewitness account was to come less than 3 weeks later, some 500 miles west of Elizabeth in West Virginia. Woodrow Derenberger, a sewing machine salesman, was driving along Interstate 77 on the evening of the 2nd of November when he encountered a UFO, which dropped out of the sky in front of his car and stopped him dead in the road. A tall being with wide-set eyes and a huge grin stretched across its face exited the strange craft and approached his vehicle. Unlike the New Jersey Grinning Man, this one was said to be wearing a blue suit, but it had the same qualities in that it was a one-piece and was made of a reflective material. To his surprise, the entity communicated with Derenberger telepathically, asking about the strange glow on the horizon, not realizing that it was the lights of a distant town.
So he doesn't know what a town is, but he can, like, speak English to your head? Like, okay. Sorry. I know I was trying to be good faith. Aliens is so ridiculous. Like, I do believe there could be life out in the universe somewhere. There is no way it is shaped like human. Like, I really don't believe that if there is currently life in the universe, it is bipedal, humanid, like hominid. Like, it doesn't make sense. We have discovered a couple of planets where scientists are like, maybe life could develop here, but like there's only a few, and it would be really difficult. They're like maybe, and but again, that is life as we recognize life. So I think it's totally possible there are places out there in the universe that have life in a way that we wouldn't necessarily recognize, So like, it's just so silly. I was so ready for him to just be a monster. Why can't he just be a monster? Why does he have to be an alien?
Derenberger reported that the individual referred to himself as Indrid Cole.
Okay. So Griffin McElroy stole that name for his Mothman guy, which is fun. It is a good name. It's a solid fucking name. Good job, Derenberger, coming up with that.
A name which didn't mean anything to him at the time, but one which would gain much notoriety in the decades that followed. Cole proceeded to ask Derenberger many questions about the people and surrounding areas, then thanked him and left in his strange craft, but not before telling the startled salesman that he would be seeing him again.
Okay.
This encounter occurred just 2 weeks before the famed Mothman sightings began in nearby Point Pleasant, and many people have often wondered whether there was any link between the two.
No.
Indeed, there was a sighting of the Grinning Man on the outskirts of Point Pleasant when the Mothman phenomenon was at its height.
All right, so is the theory then that the Mothman was warning people about the Grinning Man who's causing the trouble?
The Lilly family had been experiencing poltergeist activity in their home around this time, which had begun abruptly for no apparent reason.
They always say that.
All of a sudden, things were
always
being
a
moved
reason.
around the house of their own accord. Objects were being thrown from shelves, doors were being slammed, and even lights were being seen in the sky above their house. It was a tumultuous time for the family, who were constantly bearing the brunt of this bizarre episode at all hours of the day and night. However, it would be the youngest daughter, Linda, who fared the worst, and would experience the most terrifying aspect of this strange activity. At 1:45 a.m. on December the 14th, 1966, Linda came running into her parents' bedroom, screaming in terror. She told her mother and father that she had been awoken by an odd clicking sound, and when she opened her eyes, she was horrified to see a figure standing at the foot of her bed. It was a man, she said.
Like I said, I've gotten night terrors before, and like I have like seen / felt like creepy giant men just like creeping over me. I have seen that kind of thing myself. It is never fun. It sucks. And it's one of those things that it's like, you can't move. Like you're stuck because your brain is like awake, but your body is still kind of asleep. So like you're kind of aware, but not really. And it's so scary. And then to come awake after that. And like, it feels like you're coming out of like a viscous like pool or something. Like I always wake up like, like you can't breathe. It's terrible. Oh, it's so bad. I hope no one gets night terrors. They suck. I haven't had them in a while, but like, you launch yourself to like where you can get to a light and just to turn that on. But as a kid, like, but again, I've seen the man, I've seen a dude, and it's like, it's never distinct. It's like, it's a feeling that it's a guy. It's just a distinct shadowy figure. And it sucks. It's not fun. I feel bad for this girl for having a night terror like that.
A big man, very tall. I couldn't see his face very well, but I could see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me.
Ugh.
I screamed again and hid under the covers. When I looked again, he was gone. Suffice to say
It's
that
scary.
Linda refused to
Yeah.
sleep in her own room for weeks afterwards, and by the time she did pluck up the courage to climb back into her own bed, the poltergeist activity in the home had abated, and the Lilly family never experienced anything out of the ordinary from that point onwards. From late 1966 to early 1967, a number of people in Provincetown, Massachusetts, would have separate run-ins with a neighbourhood prowler, whom they described as very tall, muscular, and always wearing a fixed grin. The details of these reports do exist in old clippings from local newspapers, but unfortunately, they are yet to be published online.
Okay, anytime that there is like there's news coverage of an event like this, you're always going to have people who jump on board that trend. Remember the clowns? Remember the clowns from a while ago? Like, But yeah, I was like, all right, but no, I do feel bad for that little girl. I do believe she saw something. I don't believe that it was really there. But having experienced that kind of thing, it's terrifying. It is. It's so scary.
Let's point out that not all Grinning Man sightings have occurred in the US. A young woman living in Scotland by the name of Mary Elizabeth McRae would have an extremely chilling encounter which would trouble her for many years afterwards. Mary lived with her husband Alan on the outskirts of Dunkeld, a small village situated right on the cusp of the stunning Cairngorms National Park. The couple were in their mid-50s, and their children had long since left home, so for the most part, it was just Mary and Alan living together in peaceful isolation. Their house was remote. The closest neighbour lived almost a mile away, but they enjoyed the relative privacy. On the night of the 23rd of November 1972, Mary and Alan went to bed at around 9 p.m, as was usual for them, and they sat up reading for about an hour before turning off the lights and going to sleep. Mary reported that she was awoken in the early hours of the morning by an indistinct clicking sound, and upon opening her eyes, she found herself lying on her front, completely paralysed and struggling to breathe.
Yup, that is often how it feels like for me too. When I get a night terror, like a lot of the time I feel like I'm on my front and I can't breathe and it hurt, which is why I come with that like a gasping awake. and I'm like, I feel him behind me, and it's like I can almost see him, but I can't quite, and it's not great. It's not great. It sucks. So I feel bad for her too. I do feel bad for her too. I believe she saw something. I just have, it's not a good feeling. If you have ever had a night terror or sleep paralysis, it is incredibly frightening to experience. It feels like things are lasting forever. Like, again, yeah, you can't move, you can't breathe. A lot of the time you feel somebody there. Sometimes you see somebody. Like, that's a very true phenomenon. And now a lot of people, I believe, talk about infrasound as being a cause for it, like subsonic noises that like your brain interprets as danger, essentially. But it is also because you're kind of still awake. You're both awake and asleep at the same time, kind of. So it's like you can't move because only part of your brain has kind of come awake. It's so bad. It sucks.
Sleep paralysis was not fully understood or even identified as a disorder during the 1970s, so Mary, who had never experienced anything like this before, felt an inward and intensifying panic.
Yeah, you would.
But was unable to do anything about her situation.
I feel so bad for her.
The clicking increased in volume, piercing her eardrums, and then something suddenly dawned on her. She remembered that she had closed the curtains before getting into bed. It was something she always did every night without fail, and yet now she could see that they were open. All this time, she had a distinct feeling of being watched, and a very slight movement in the periphery of her vision drew her attention to the bottom left pane of the bedroom window. To her complete horror, she saw a face staring back at her. It had dark beady eyes and was fixed with an awful malevolent grin.
It's another one of those things too. I want to see if when she woke up in the morning were the curtains actually open, because so many times I've experienced this kind of thing where everything in my room looks the way it's supposed to. Like, it all is there. The big difference is I really shouldn't be able to see it because I am so blind. But everything looks normal. Like, everything looks really normal. Like, I've even had one where like it was still kind of a dream, and I managed to get up and out of bed and into the hallway. Like, and that was all it looked like my house, like to a T. There was nothing different. So except for maybe, like, again, the fact that I could see at all. So I'd be curious for her to see if, like, when she wakes up tomorrow, are the curtains actually open? Because and again, like, a lot of the times this kind of thing can happen when you're stressed, or like, I don't even know, like, again, sometimes it's infrasound, sometimes there's like lots of different causes for it, but just curious, because again, like, it makes you see stuff that's not really there, but it looks like your room. You think you're awake.
She stared back. She felt herself becoming transfixed, unable to avert her gaze. She then felt her whole body lift off the bed and slowly float towards the face. In her panic, she tried to scream out, but no sound came from her mouth, and she was unable to move. She was not to know what happened next, as she blacked out, and when she awoke the next morning, she was suffering from a terrible headache.
That sucks.
Which did not ease for almost a week afterwards. She also noticed that the curtains were still open. Okay. A fact which cast doubt on any notion in later years that she had simply experienced a bout of sleep paralysis.
I mean, other possibilities are she forgot to close them, or her husband opened them in the morning.
Mary passed away in 2013 at the age of 94, but the memory of what she saw that night stayed with her until the day she died.
Yeah, it sucks. Sleep
Taking
paralysis.
all of these accounts into consideration,
very, very bad.
What are we to make of this phenomenon? Just who on earth is the Grinning Man? Or rather, what is he? Is there more than one of him? Or is he a single entity who chooses to terrorize unsuspecting individuals for no apparent reason? There are a number of conflicting accounts regarding his identity, and whilst all eyewitnesses describe him in a similar fashion, the situations in which he has been seen vary significantly. For example, some people who have encountered the famed Men in Black have described them as having inhuman features, as well as sporting malevolent grins. Others who claim to have been abducted by aliens have also reported seeing a grinning man during their experience. Indeed, the clicking sounds heard in both the Linda Lilly and Mary McRae encounters are commonly reported in many alien abduction cases, and some abductees have even mentioned the name of Indrid Cold.
Because it's a badass effing name. Like, Woodrow Derringer already has kind of a cool name. The fact that he came up with this Indrid Cold thing, sick. Excellent. It's a great name. And now I know we're in Griffin. I thought Griffin McElroy came up with it, but no, apparently not. Griffin, you lied to me.
To Woodrow Derenberger during his experience. One such encounter occurred in Italy in December of 1979, when a man by the name of Pierre Zanfretta, who allegedly had a history of being abducted by a race of reptilian aliens, claimed to have been contacted by a grinning man shortly before being taken aboard a UFO.
That was a typo.
He said that this man referred to himself as none other than Indrid Cold. Throughout the late 60s and early 70s, Woodrow Derenberger would go on to state that he was visited many more times by the same Indrid Cold he had met on that cold dark night back in 1966.
I'm so glad none of these folks had TikTok, y'all. Like, I'm so glad they didn't, because you know for a fact they would not have any of this on camera, but they're like, oh yeah, he visited me again. Like, you know, the story times would be crazy.
He would also claim to have been visited by two other grinning men who went by the names of Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo.
He's great at coming up with names, man. Why didn't he just be an author? I feel like, you know what, he's a traveling salesman. He spends a lot of time alone in his car. He's got a lot of time to, like, think about cool stuff. Like, he should have just become an author.
Even his wife testified to meeting these beings, and she believed their agenda was evil. Sadly, she and Derenberger divorced shortly after these encounters.
It had nothing to do with them, I'm sure.
There is the connection with the Mothman, which many people believe was itself an extraterrestrial
I've never heard
being.
that people thought the Mothman
Some
was an
fringe
alien.
theorists have even presented a theory that the Grinning Man, Indrid Cold, and the Mothman were all one and the same. A member of the same race of shape-shifting aliens, who in fact walk among us and even pose as government officials in the form of MIBs. But is this perhaps a stretch too far?
Yes.
After all, if we are to look at these accounts with a critical eye, we must point out that at least the first 3 reported sightings of the Grinning Man begin and end with John Keel,
who was trying to sell a book.
He was the first to write about them in his books, and would have applied his own biases and taken his own artistic liberties.
And he was a ufologist. He wants everything to be aliens.
Even the Mothman sightings were further borne out and brought to international attention by him.
Yep.
Perhaps these encounters were embellished and made out to be more bizarre than they actually were, and it would therefore be reasonable to assume that any eyewitness accounts since then are purely copycat fabrications.
Or like the legitimate legitimate night terror. Because like honestly, I've even had dreams where it's something like I've had a similar guy in my head, like in my dream, where it's like it's terrifying to witness him. Like, but it's just uncanny valley enough that I feel like a lot of different people could come up with something like that separately without knowing about everything else. Cause like he's creepy looking. It's weird. You got a creepy, weird guy smiling at you. Like it's, you know, that would stick with you. It'd be scary. I've had a dream that's lived in my head and it won't go away. And it's like a very similar looking guy was in that, but it was a dream. But again, I feel like there was definitely some copycats. I feel like Derenberger was having some fun. And he should have become an author because his ability to come up with names is kind of just sickening. And I don't know, it is interesting though.
Of course, this is all speculation, and it is rather uncanny how all physical descriptions of this being are inherently similar, and interesting how these sightings always seem to occur around the same time of year, between winter and spring. Could it be that the Grinning Man, whomever he is, seems to prefer colder seasons?
Or is there an atmospheric
No pun intended,
reason
of course,
for
on his alleged last name.
Fair.
The fact remains that whether we believe it or not, the Grinning Man phenomenon is here to stay, with more and more encounters being reported with each passing year. And if you ever find yourself walking alone at night, or even sleeping soundly in your own bed, pray you never come face to face with a tall man who wears a fixed grin and who calls himself Cold.
I mean, if I'm walking alone at night, I don't want to come across a tall man grinning at me. I don't want to see that ever. Bye, Cold. All right. So that was the Grinning Man. And I know that I said I was going to try and be open-minded about it, but oh my god, they went straight to aliens. I wasn't expecting that. And I couldn't take it seriously. I'm sorry. But again, like the Linda and the lady in Scotland, I 100% believe they saw something. I just don't think it was real. I think it was just a night terror. Because, like, especially if, like, the little girl, she'd, like, if something weird had been going on in her house, you know, which, again, I don't necessarily believe it was a poltergeist. I think, you know, whatever. But if something weird was going on, if she was already stressed, if there was, like, I mean, like, it can be brought on by stress. Night terrors. And sleep paralysis. It's one of the things that can bring it on. So it's like, I do believe that both of them experienced that they saw something similar, and I've experienced something similar myself. Again, like I said, I haven't in a while. It's been a long time since I've had a bad night terror. It's been several years. Because it's not fun. I hope it's several more years. I hope I never have one again, because it's really, really sucks. All right. Well, that was who is the Grinning Man? The answer is we don't know. If there are more things like this you could let me know about, please do. I would love to know. I'd love to see more cryptid stuff, more spooky stuff. I want to, like, give me those hauntings, you know? I want to see more of it. I feel like I did just recently watch a video about the Men in Black. Why? Because it was just me listening to it or watching it. I don't recall. I think maybe John Wolfe did a video about them. I think maybe it was John Wolfe. Let me just see if I can find it. Because if I can, I'll direct you to that video too. Let's see here. YouTube. No, come on. Give me to the... Wake up. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I don't think it was John Wolfe. I think it might have been Decoding the Unknown. I think it might have been good old Simon with Decoding the Unknown is probably what it was. I think it was that. I'm like 90% certain now. I mean, it feels like it's a thing John Wolfe would have done. Like, he has all those ghost debunking videos and that, so it feels like something that he would do. I think in this particular case, it was Simon. So, again, we have some Decoding the Unknown video. I don't know if we actually have any Decoding the Unknown videos up, because all those videos are really long. So those are things that I'll kind of like listen to as kind of a mini podcast as I'm doing something else. But in any case, let me know what else I should look at. If you've got any other spooky stuff that I should take a peek at, do tell. I want to know, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.